record button. Okay, so calling the meeting to order. Due to the governor's statewide disaster declaration relating to the COVID-19 pandemic and current public health guidelines for social distancing, I've determined that it's not prudent for the members of the village or board or staff to convene in person for tonight's meeting. Therefore, the members of the village board are attending this meeting by video conference. These same conditions require barring access to the public for in-person attendance. In light of these limitations, the public's invited to attend and listen to the meeting through the Zoom platform or by phone as indicated in the meeting agenda. To comply with the Open Meetings Act requirements for virtual meetings, tonight's meeting is being recorded. If I could ask Village Clerk Gayton to take attendance and make sure everyone can be heard, then we can get going.
Excellent. Trustee Borowski, can you hear me?
Yes, here. Thank you.
Thank you. And so Trustee Kritzmeyer, is she on yet or no? Did I hear she is not?
I'm on.
You are. Excellent. And I can hear you.
Yeah, hey.
All right. Trustee O'Reilly, can
I
you
am
hear
here.
me?
I can hear you.
Thank you. Trustee Nora, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee O'Connor, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Excellent. I can. And Trustee Michaud, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you. Excellent.
All right, thank you very much. So we can begin. It's our first board meeting of the year, and it's still being virtual, but there is hope that we'll be able to meet in person sometime soon. The first item on the agenda is the Homeowners Association visitors. Is there anyone here from Oak Island's? Gary Lundgren?
Bill, did you want to do the pledge?
Oh, I apologize. Thank you. I'm just moving us right along and I'm following the agenda, but I missed the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's do a Pledge of Allegiance to the flag,
Of
The
the
United States of America, and to the republic
for
for
which
which it stands,
one
one
nation,
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 under
under
God,
God,
visible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Vic, for keeping me on target here. So anyone here from Oak Island's, Gary Lundgren? Salem on the Lake, Susan Klein? Or Sherman's Pine Valley, Stuart Osserman? All right, if not, we'll move on to the item number 2, which has been struck from the agenda, right, Bill? There is no report tonight?
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Mayor.
correct.
That was supposed to show us no report on the printed one. I missed that.
Okay, cool. Moving right along. It's consideration, item number 3 on the agenda, consideration of an ordinance adopting by reference the Lake County Watershed Development Ordinance as amended. And Jeff Perry, I'm going to put you on the spot because I think you would be best to take us through why we need to do this and what it really is we would be approving tonight.
Certainly, happy to do so. So just jumping right in, the Lake County Watershed Development Ordinance, and I'm going to refer to it as the WDO to not have to say it so many times, is the document that regulates stormwater compliance in Lake County. From time to time, the Lake County Stormwater Management Commission updates the WDO, to do some house cleaning things, keep up with current technologies, those types of things. The ordinance was last amended in October of 2015, and Long Grove is what's called a certified community, and they are recognized and available to enforce the Lake County WDO at a local level. In order to maintain the village's certification status, they need to have the most current WDO on file and approved and adopted. So back in 2015, when the ordinance was adopted, the village went through this same process. Just real briefly, this WDO amendment has 34 different amendments, and there's a number of them that are I would refer to as housekeeping type items, talking about how to deal with different soil types, changing references to outdated technical reference memoranda, and also a handful of amendments that that update the ordinance to comply with the federal regulations for wetlands, both delineation and to preserve them. There are two specific amendments that I wanted to call attention to, and you know, in the way that I look at it, these are the kind of the meat of the amendments. So one of them is the updated rainfall. Over the last few years, the area has received more rainfall than it has in the past, and the Illinois State Water Survey back in spring of 2019 published new rainfall data, and it has since been reviewed, scrutinized, and adopted by Lake County, and it's now in this amended WDO. Just real briefly, the rainfall has the most direct impact on stormwater detention basins. Stormwater detention basins, they're designed for what's called the 100-year storm. And under the previous ordinance, the 100-year storm included 6.5 inches of rainfall in a 24-hour period. With the new ordinance, it's now 8.57 inches. So it went up 32%. So stormwater detention basins will get bigger as a result of the new rainfall data. And that's going to be for all developments, commercial, residential, and they're going to be in both, you know, certified or not certified communities. So all development in Lake County, stormwater detention basins are getting bigger. The other one that I want to call attention to is amendment number 3, and it's what's called the Fill 50 program. The county recognized that that's a pretty significant jump from 6.5 inches to 8.57 inches. Also recognize that sometimes there's site limitations and constraints to providing detention basins, especially a basin that's going to be 32% larger. So they proposed and included this, what's called this Fill 50. And Fill 50 is FIL, which is an acronym for fee in lieu, and 50, as I mentioned, the regulatory rainfall for stormwater detention basins is a 100-year storm, and the amended WDO allows for developers, if you will, to provide up to the 50-year storm and pay for the remainder. Now that is certainly not half. The 50-year storm is 7.5 inches of rain, so it's still more than the previous 100-year storm, but it's still a little bit short of the 100-year storm that's in the amended rainfall. So detention basins would still get bigger under the Fill 50 program, but not up to the 100-year storm. Do want to circle back, not even if the village wanted to or adopted this program, not all developments are going to qualify for it. There's a number of things that need to be considered. The impact to downstream properties needs to be very carefully evaluated before considering this program for development. So just because somebody is developing and wants to go into the Fill 50 program, if it's available, doesn't mean that they're going to qualify. So the Lake County Stormwater Management Commission has not provided us a fee schedule, what that fee in lieu is going to be. So it's a little bit lacking on details at this point. And the cover memorandum that I sent over to Bill Balling last month suggested that we move forward with the Fill 50 program to not make it active until all of the details of that program are identified and put in place. The fee schedule, and then at that point it could be active. One other thing that I would mention, the county ordinance does include the Fill 50. So developments that are in what's non-certified communities or other developments that are going to be reviewed by the Lake County Stormwater Management Commission, this program will be available to them. Again, the considerations of impacts downstream are going to need to be reviewed. They'd be reviewed by the county. But suffice it to say, the county supports the program. And for what it's worth, a lot of the area municipalities in Lake County have also supported the program. Now, the kicker of the program would be that Long Grove would want to become certified in this. So that way, the fees that are collected would be collected by Long Grove so that Long Grove could use those for stormwater projects in their municipality. If they're not certified for the Phil 50 program, the fees go into a bucket collected by Lake County, and they would use them throughout the county. So if the village doesn't administer the Phil 50 on a local level, the funds could be collected from Long Grove and used in a neighboring community. I'm not going to pick on any of the neighboring communities, but you get the idea. So that's an optional program. Certainly been a lot of discussion about the program at the county level and with other municipalities. I would just throw out there the general consensus and what I've seen other communities do. We're supporting and going with the program since the county supported it. But there certainly can be the argument made that if you come out with 100-year rainfall data, why don't you make people and developers comply with that new rainfall to protect the whole community watershed at large, if you will. So in a nutshell, like I said, the WDO has 34 amendments. 33 of those are probably pretty straightforward. This Phil 50 is certainly one that's probably going to get a little discussion here as I turn it back over to you, Bill.
Yeah, no,
And
thanks.
if I can jump, this is Vic, if I can jump in, piggyback on what Jeff said. The ordinance that's drafted before you tonight does include the Phil 50 program. And if you do go forward with that, this is going to have to come back to you again in the future for some further action. But for now, this will do all that you need to do.
Hey, thanks, Vic, as well. The one question I have before I ask for comment from the board is the certification process and what that costs us for us to be able to receive those funds if we somebody develops something that's Phil 50 applicable or whatever, right? Or qualifies for Phil 50.
Yeah, and that's directly attributable to a little short on details from the county at this point. I don't know yet. They have not published anything on that.
Okay, and then
And I'll answer that a little bit further, is that if we find out that that price is too dear, we can just delete that portion of the program from our ordinance when we revisit it. So
Yeah, it's an optional amendment. So, whatever the village, elects to do, that decision can be undone or redone, if you will, by, future resolutions. So,
all right, one more quick question, and then what's the rush in doing it now versus waiting until we get the information?
county requires the action to be done by is it the 18th, Jeff, or the 19th? I don't recall offhand.
yeah, next Monday, January 18th, which is kind of funny because it's a holiday.
Yeah.
So,
Of course.
Got it.
But that in order to qualify to become a certified or to be continuing as a certified community, you technically have to have it adopted by that date.
Got it. All right, I'll turn it over to the board for questions. Bobby, it looks like you're ready to talk.
I've got two questions. One is when someone is using the 50/50 upstream, do we get notified of that?
so the ordinance,
You're saying that they would be looking out for us, but would we be looking out for ourselves too?
you're saying, for example, Killdeer is upstream on Buffalo Creek. If one of their developers use 50/50, would they, the Phil 50, would they tell Long Grove? That has not been discussed or committed to by the county.
I would think that it would be important that downstream would be notified if in fact the requirements are being in half of what's being asked of them?
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
Okay. Then my second question is there any mechanism for existing detention, retention to have to adhere to the new norm? Is there anything that triggers it? It's, you know, like if the house burns down, you have to do the new stuff kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's a good way to put it. If they're going to redevelop, they would have to comply with the new stuff. But developments that are out there now, if they don't do anything like
What would be the trigger
Arboria,
point?
Arboria would not have to retrofit or do any improvements to their basins because as part of this.
No, I understand that, but if is there any trigger that makes an existing have to bring rise to the new standard?
It's without getting too technical, it would be kind of an incremental type thing. Say, for example, you've got a development that's got a detention basin and they want to put an addition on their building. The building addition, that detention would need to follow current requirements, but it would not mean that the entire existing building needs to be brought into compliance as far as detention requirements. Does that make sense?
So are you sort of saying that the old would have to adhere to the 6.5 limit or the 6.5 capacity, and the little bit of new would have to adhere to the 857 capacity?
Yeah, and I would say that the old has
Okay.
to maintain the volume that they have.
Yeah, the way that the ordinance works is that if you cross a threshold, and there's a series of triggers for that threshold under the ordinance, then you have to comply with the then applicable WDO. So if you're putting on an addition, it's for the scope of that addition that is a development of impact that has to be providing for the stormwater. If you're under the threshold, you don't have to have it. If you're over it, you do, but only with respect to the development involved.
So does that mean, Vic, if you've got a tear down, an old house is going to be replaced with a new house, that you have to meet the new standard?
I believe that's the way that it works.
That's correct.
Okay.
Even
And
if
that's
the footprint
consistent,
is
that's consistent with the existing WDO. That definition really hasn't changed. It's just that now the degree to which you have to provide the detention has been ratcheted up.
Right. Okay. Good to know.
Okay,
What kind of a development would qualify for the Phil 50 versus one that doesn't?
I thought through that. Say, for example, a development that their stormwater discharges right into a creek. You know, let's call it Buffalo Creek. You know, that would be a development that would not have any, wouldn't have any adverse impacts to the downstream property because it's an open flowing stream. So that one would likely qualify for the Phil 50. Like I said earlier, there's a number of things that we would look at. One that probably would not would be a development in a stormwater detention basin that uses a drain tile for an outlet. Drain tiles are a lot of things. Among those are old and unreliable. So that would probably not be a good use of the Phil 50 program. And I would not support that.
So let's say there's a request to build a new shopping center. At what point in the discussions does this topic enter the discussion? Or does it ever enter the discussion and people just assume things?
It would be something very early on because the size of the detention basin has a large impact on what the site plan looks like for a commercial property, and the size of a detention basin would have a lot to do and a lot of impact on, say, for example, the number of lots on a residential development. So very early on, the discussion would be had about stormwater detention sizing and a Fill 50 program if it would be available.
And then who makes that call? How does that unfold?
So everything is up to the determination of the enforcement officer. As Long Grove's a certified community, they have a named enforcement officer, which happens to be myself. So the burden comes to my desk on that. But there are checkpoints in there. For example, the Fill 50, any request, there's there's 45 days to look at that. Lake County Stormwater has also been a very good partner, even to certified communities, to help with new ordinance amendments, even over the years. Because at one point in time, the water quality, for example, we didn't have our hands on that. So as a certified community, I'm just saying we as any certified community, and Lake County, ushered us through that and their thoughts with that. So I would imagine there would be a lot of that going on, not only if Long Grove does Fill 50, but other communities as well.
Hey, one more question too, just some scenarios. So Archer lots, somebody wants to build a building. How are they impacted by this? Karen's Corner, an approved PUD, no development. There's some other developments that haven't been fully built out yet, right? So new houses may go on those developments. So how does this impact those scenarios?
So the grandfather clauses in the ordinance are still in there. So if there was approval granted to a subdivision, say for example Karen's Corner, that would remain in effect. However, as we kind of talked about, if Karen's Corner came back and that needed a major change to their approvals, that would kind of restart that process. It would be required to comply with the new regulations. The Archer lots, I believe there was stormwater detention provided for those when the Archer parking lot was reconstructed. So, that would again fall under the grandfather clause, provided they're under what was approved for impervious area, and I don't have that number in front of me, Bill. So those would still be grandfathered in.
Can you confirm that, please, Jeff, sometime later?
Yeah, I certainly.
How long do the grandfather clauses grandfather?
The stormwater permits for under the WDO, those are good for, and it's usually more restrictive on a local level for the building permit. Say, for example, like, Karen's Corner, they've got an expiration date on their approvals that the village had given, and those will expire before the stormwater permit will. Grandfather clauses, go all the way back to, if a development was platted in 1992, there's certain exemptions and grandfather clauses that apply to that. So, so they go pretty far back.
All right, any other questions? Oh, Chris, go ahead. Yep.
Hey, Jeff, thanks. So what's the impact to current detention areas that we currently have in the village? If rainfall's increased by 30%, do we have any risk or any concern about current detentions overflowing? I know that doesn't really pertain to the ordinance itself, but I was just curious what kind of impact or what risk we have based on the new data that rainfall is 30% higher than it used to be.
So I'll provide this. When we were considering the Fill 50, the chief engineer over at Lake County Stormwater Management Commission, he looked at detention basins throughout the county, in the months of May, when we got those big rainfalls, when overtopping and overflowing was more common, I should say. And what he found was detention basins that were permitted under the WDO. So, anytime in the last 30 years, we're functioning pretty well. Detention basins and facilities that were constructed, before the WDO in 1992, those were the ones where he saw, let's say issues would be a decent word. So detention basins, they can overtop for a variety of reasons. Those detention basins that were constructed under WDO requirements, I usually find those have a problem with overtopping when their outlet pipes are clogged.
Okay, thank you for that. And then the other question I had was, yeah, I haven't studied this thing in a lot of detail, but a lot of discussion about mitigation acreage less than 1.5 acres and more than 1.5 acres. How does that impact us since we've got so many homes greater than 1.5 acre lot sizes? Is there any impact there or any difference?
So I think you're referring back to some of the wetland mitigation amendments.
Okay.
So those were more or less part of the previous WDO, and those come into play, and they're part of these amendments because the Clean Water Act with the navigable water protection rule was revised July of last year. So this is kind of a catch up with the Lake County WDO catching up to that.
Okay, I find it comical actually that the Phil 50 is even in discussion by the county, and that rainfall's 30% higher, but let's find this kind of way to get some money out of the deal. I find it really comical. But with that, I'll kind of move to adopt this ordinance.
Yeah,
Okay, so go ahead.
Can I have a clarification question?
Sure.
In what's the deadline in Long Grove for our approval on a subdivision? That is it, does that approval go for 2 years and then they have to resubmit, or is it longer than 2 years? In other words, let's say Karen's Corner sits there for 2 years. What's the deadline on the zoning doesn't change, but what's the deadline on any approvals or permits?
I believe it's 12 months to go from tentative to final and then 2 years to build out, but I will confirm that while we proceed.
It's 12 years?
No,
Did you
12
say?
months
Oh.
to go from tentative to final. And then 2 years to go from final to commencing construction.
So in a situation like that, do the more strict requirements apply? Or again, is that part of the grandfather clause?
Once you have your approvals, so long as those approvals remain valid, whatever regime of the ordinance was in place when you got the approvals is what applies. And it's only if you have to go back to the drawing board that changes.
When you define approvals, like when we voted on it and said yes? Or permit approvals, building approvals?
No, again, there are a bunch of different things for what are regulated developments, but for a typical subdivision, it's when it gets approval as a subdivision. And I think tentative subdivision is the trigger for that, but I can confirm that as well.
I see.
All right, but
Can I piggyback on Rita's question? You mentioned Karen's Corner, 12 months and 2 years. Are we approaching that, or have we passed that? And then what happens?
Well, there are the rights to seek extensions. I don't recall exactly what the timing is with them right now.
Yeah, I won't belabor it, but could we get that information?
We sure can.
It's
Yeah.
close to 2 years, I think.
It just seems like it, although it did take an awfully long time to do.
We had a vote our very first meeting of being sworn in nearly 4 years ago on that. And then of course.
But we talked about it for another good year or two.
The paper was like this.
Yeah. But he doesn't need all those, he doesn't need the same detention he used to need. He sold a chunk off, right?
Yes.
And I agree with your thoughts, Chris, that, they say, well, it's gone up by 32%. but here's an incentive for you to go with a 50-year
Right.
plan instead of a 100-year plan. You
Right,
know,
it's comical, right? It just
Well, it's-
blows your mind, but
the only thing I can think of that's rational for something like that is they want us to do something now. In other words, you know, if you've got something on the table, they're incentivizing at least going to the 7.5 inches, right, Jeff, for the difference between 8.5 and 7.5. It's the difference between the Phil 50 and the 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 57.5 and 100-year is 8.5. So
Yeah, so, you know, they're kind of incentivizing the villages to participate in the revenues of the permitting process and at least get it done now, apparently. So maybe they're afraid it'll fall on them. Who knows? I don't know. But
Maybe when you see the fees, it'll make sense.
but then when we get
Oh, yeah.
when we get the kickback, so to speak, must it be used for stormwater purposes, Jeff?
No,
Yeah.
it's not going to be a path.
yeah, what I do know, like I said, a little short on details, but what I do know is if a community does become certified, there'll be like an annual audit of fees collected and what they were spent on.
But we spent the money on,
Correct.
but we are certified.
So there's two levels of certification. There's certified to enforce the watershed development ordinance, which Long Grove is. And then there's certified to administer this Phil 50 program, which those are the details that should be coming out here within the next couple months,
Gotcha.
from what I understand.
So what are we approving tonight?
Tonight
what
we are
language-
approving the updated WDO. And the Phil 50 program is in there, but it's really a placeholder now because a lot of the relevant provisions have not yet been fleshed out by the county. So that will have to come back to you in any event, either for further implementation provisions or for elimination if you want to go that way.
So what do we need our official minutes to note that we actually took action on?
The resolution, or I'm sorry, the ordinance before you covers everything. The footnote that we're sharing with you is simply that there's an element of it that is going to require some revisiting. And
Gotcha.
that doesn't have a time frame as yet.
So if
Gotcha.
we find that we can't apply that 50 Phil thing, we can opt out of it? After voting yes?
Yes, we can amend the code to get rid of that provision. At this point, if you adopt the ordinance as written tonight, it will be part of our local version of the WDO. Once we know more information about what the county's approach for this is going to be, you'll get a second bite at the apple on that program.
But we don't, even if we say okay to the Phil 50, even if we say okay to the ordinance the way it is, we do not have to go along with Phil 50 developments. Is that correct?
Well, there wouldn't be any eligibility for someone to seek the Phil 50 until that part of the ordinance has been fully approved, which is not the case as yet.
Right, no, I understand
We,
that.
certainly we can have a Phil 50 program and we can even tweak the ordinance if the board wants to, once we know more about what the Phil 50 program is going to be, to say that nobody gets it without first getting reviewed by the village board. In other words, put a constraint on Jeff in his implementation of it if we end up going that route.
So I just want to throw out there, even at a county level, the Phil 50 program will not be active until a fee schedule is adopted by the county. So even if the Phil 50 is approved tonight at a local level, it's not going to be an active program until the county adopts their fee schedule. And believe me, I will keep the board well informed of what that fee schedule looks like well before the county adopts it as I get the information.
So Vic, oh, go ahead, Rita.
Is it possible that the Phil 50 could be so onerous that a developer would say, forget it, I'll just go with the 100-year specs?
Or so
Absolutely.
costly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, but so should we tonight, it sounds like we need to approve this, but should we put that extra caveat in there about to use it requires village board approval?
It's going to have to be approved by the board again,
Okay,
so we don't need to do it tonight. You know, when we get to that point and we know more what the county determines the Phil 50 program is going to be, we can decide either to go with it, not to go with it, or to go with it with some modification, which could include this village board review before any kind of approval is authorized for the Phil 50.
Oh, how mean to future boards.
By the way, I did take a look at our code. Subdivisions have to go from preliminary to final within 12 months. Once they have final, they're fine. We also have a requirement in our PUD that you have to get your detailed plan done within 24 months unless you get an extension.
Thank you.
Oh, but when do you have to break ground?
There's no requirement for the breaking of ground.
Okay, okay.
So you can have your, once you have your approvals in place, you're fine, but you have to have the detailed plan, and then you can't do anything other than what's in that detailed plan unless you want to seek an amendment. So they'd have
Did
to
we
come
ever
back to
get
the
a
board.
detailed plan done with the mark?
Yeah.
Didn't we get 59 of them?
Both of the two.
the Swanson development, yeah.
Deer
Trail.
Deer Trail.
Trail, yeah.
and Karen's Corner both got their detailed. So I don't know where they are in terms of moving forward, but that's they are vested in terms of their permit or their plans, I should say.
All right, so we had a motion almost.
Chris made a motion. We did not have a second.
Yes,
I did.
and Bobby
Okay.
seconded it. Trustee O'Reilly seconded it. That's a roll call.
All right, trustee Borowski,
Aye.
trustee Kritzmeyer,
Aye.
trustee O'Reilly,
Aye.
trustee Nora,
Aye.
trustee O'Connor,
Aye.
and trustee Michaud.
Is that an aye?
Thank you.
All right.
That's
motion
what I
ca-
heard. Excellent.
Motion carried then. So moving on to the next item on the agenda, and Jesse DeSoto, thank you for joining tonight, is a resolution approving the HDL-GBA Historic Downtown Business Association events calendar for 2021, COVID permitting, right?
That's
And
right. That's right.
so I don't know, I asked Jesse to join. There were some questions about some of the required documents that we were looking for. And I don't know if you looked them all over, or Bill, you looked them over, but those were sent to us back in December. Budget, insurance, how money was spent, I believe. So I don't know if that is this, Ian, was that the stuff that you needed at this point?
I think everybody should be having this. That was the whole point, was that as part of the whole contract, we were to get a budget and how it was spent and a report every year. So thank you very much for joining, Jesse. I don't know if you wanted to cover that, and then, you know, by way of anything that's not in here, everybody should be having this. Did I miss it, or did it? I mean,
We did send it out. I think it was around mid-December. Somehow it got lost in translation, I think.
okay.
So it's just landing in your hands today. Bill Jacobs called me, and I just quickly forwarded it to him a little before the meeting. But you know, I totally understand if you guys need a little time to look at it and such. For the dates, we're approaching them pretty gingerly. As you guys all know, events are up in the air with the COVID situation. So we're watching the news, we're watching the guidelines, and really we just wanted to get the calendar in place so we could start setting things in motion. But realistically, you know, we're kind of watching as we go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, so we need to just get it out to everyone. I don't know if Bill can post it or have those documents posted. You have them all and the board can go in and look at them?
Yeah, I've got to catch up with that, Bill. There are three issues that were required under the IGA. The first was the assessment of the activities from the last year. The second is the work plan for this year, which we have and we're just before you this evening. And then the third component is verification of the real estate parcels that are to be included in the special service area ordinance, which actually that can wait because if there's some change condition, we don't need that till early fall so that we can create the proper ordinance to levy the taxes. So that would be probably a September, October deadline. But those would be the three requirements that were there. I'll chase around and see what I've got and get that distributed to the board with regard to the report from last year and the budget.
And the insurance certificate is there too.
And the insurance certificate.
It's there, yep.
I saw the insurance. I guess from my standpoint, in terms of an assessment, what I think I would appreciate, whether we do this in a Zoom and record it that way, or, you know, a one-page summary, it's kind of like what happened. Here, I see the budget, but a discussion of, you know, not deep, but a discussion of like, here's the plan, here's how it went, here's what we're changing, or here's what we're keeping the same.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I would probably, to get you a better detail of that, you know, the numbers and everything, I'd probably refer to Dave Gayton, which I can just get a hold of him and he could probably whip something up. That shouldn't be too tough. You know, it was a funky year. It definitely was not anything on track that we had planned. Obviously the major 3 festivals did not happen, so there was no activity there. Many of the smaller ones were scaled back quite a bit. We did make some changes. There was the outdoor music, the live music that we had started doing. We put some money towards that, and I think for the restaurants and businesses, they enjoyed the traffic. You know, our focus has been keeping people moving. I think at a time when a lot of our surrounding towns were just frozen in place, I think we did a pretty good job of continuing to move forward and show that we were still operating safely, differently. We had changed the way we had done things, but you know, that had been our main focus of last year, was just trying to help these businesses navigate what none of us had been through. And that really consumed just so much of what we had done. Towards the tail end of the year, I think we finally figured out what was going on in the world a little bit. And that's when we started introducing the things like the carriage rides and, you know, the holiday stuff has started happening. Now the Scarecrow Days was a nice hit. We had that one I can say because I was there. We had 137 families come in and build scarecrows on that day, which was just, again, it was just kind of neat to see that life at a time when everything was really at a standstill. And that's been our focus this year. But I'll have Dave, he's the one that'll get you the numbers you're looking for. That's just kind of a synopsis of quick summary of what we've been trying to accomplish in 2020 and 2021. You know, we're hoping to get some of the events back. We're not very optimistic about Chocolate Fest. We did put that in there, but we're really not putting a lot into that. That would be the first major fest in May. And we do feel that's going to be a bit early, but we may still plan something small and chocolate related to still get some activity. Other than that, we are hoping to get the major events back, and that's a big part of how we make our budget work. So we're looking to do that. And yeah, 2020 has been good. It definitely helped us in cutting some corners. I had just stepped in February of 2020, so that was fun. And
Nice timing.
that was awesome. So, you know, for me, it was adjustment too, but I think we got a pretty good handle on it. I think our budgeting, I think with even just one fest, if we're able to pull an Apple Fest, we're going to do just fine. And hopefully continue to draw people into the town, get it revitalized. And I think we've seen a lot of that. You guys have been a lot of help with all being flexible. I know that was some quick decisions and that really mattered, you know, being able to get our restaurants outside, being able to set up those tents right away and cut a lot of that tape. I think there were other towns waiting to figure out what they could do, and we had tents up. So, you know, thanks for your help with that. I know we were able to expedite that. But yeah, we're looking forward to getting out of this in 21 and helping these businesses get back on their feet and growing. Some have done quite well. Some of the restaurants have done very well. Some of the retail have done very well. Some have not. So we're just trying to recover now.
I have one question. Is there a reason why the races are not on this list?
The races we couldn't get confirmed. We know they're about the same time, but they did end up canceling them last minute this year. And I know they're kind of rethinking of how they want to approach it. So I have not gotten any confirmed dates, but I would imagine they'd be around the same time. In that November, the turkey trot would probably be about the same time if he does do it, but I've not gotten a contract from him.
There was an email that came in regarding the,
Well, that's what triggered my question.
yeah,
I know that everybody, you did, the village did a lot of hopping in order to accommodate the race people.
Mhm.
And I'd hate to see us getting that again this year.
Yeah, you're right. There was a few
Yes,
balls
exactly.
on top
Nope.
of that.
In fact, that fits perfectly into the card thing, I think. Oh, might be a little big, but
Amy, you better
I can
mute
cut them
yourself.
down with the little thing. Awesome.
Amy.
Thank you. Between these, I'll figure it out. Thank you.
Gotta love working from home or doing these from home. Tonight though, I mean, would it help you to have the dates approved, at least subject to COVID and all the other stuff? At least you can start the planning. I know there's still some information we're needing, but I mean, would that help you, Jesse?
Yeah, it absolutely would. I mean, like I said, we're not, jumping in super crazy and fast, but some preliminary things and having the date, everything kind of starts with that. So if we could even get that, we'll work from there. And, any major changes to stuff, we'll keep you posted on that. And that would help.
I would make a motion approving the Historic Downtown Long Grove Business Association Special Events Calendar for 2021.
Moved by
Second.
trustee O'Reilly, seconded by trustee Nora. Roll
Can
call.
I have a question or
Oh, sure.
let's take the vote and then I'll chime in. That's fine.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Okay, trustee Michaud.
Aye.
Trustee O'Connor.
Aye.
Trustee Nora.
Aye.
Trustee O'Reilly.
Aye.
Trustee Kritzmeyer.
Aye.
And trustee Borowski.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. There you go, Jesse.
All
Hey-
right, thank you.
Hey, Bill, before we move off and we got Jesse,
Yeah, absolutely.
hey, Jesse, thanks. By the way, thanks for all you do. I think it's important to just say thank you, right?
Thank you.
We've talked to Mike in the past, just very superficially about trying to find a way to get these festivals to go zero landfill. Like to have a conversation with you to see if we can maybe put a plan in place to try to move in that direction. Certainly with COVID, it may be a challenge and don't want to throw you guys more hurdles or roadblocks to jump over, but I think down the road, it'd be a good thing for us to work towards to be able to come to zero landfill festivals. So just want to see if we get together and maybe have that dialogue.
Yeah, I think that would for sure be embraced, especially by the generations that we got coming up. I think that's a solid move.
And I mean, you guys have
yeah.
done great things recycling, but now it's time to move to that next step to make sure we're not
Yeah.
landfilling anything.
Yeah, and if we can't get to zero, maybe we can at least make some progress on it.
Right on. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm open to that. I can get you my contact info, or you can reach out to me at the village center. They can get me.
Yep.
So for sure. That's
Yeah,
good.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Anything else? While I'm here, anything you guys want to know? Happy to fill you in.
Just
I have a question.
random.
for you,
Oh,
Jesse.
go ahead.
And I think you as well. You have an
Oh, thank
unenviable position. I'm wondering if there could be a conversation regarding less cash and more tickets at the festivals, where they buy the tickets and use the tickets for whatever. So that
Yes. Okay. So, and then I don't know if this is different than what you're talking about, but like right now, we have the ticket booths, and they go and they spend the cash there, and then they use those for the vendors. I think there's, if we're thinking about like the bigger fest, like Chocolate Fest, are you talking about how they have their own booths and they take the cash, or is it more in the, with the booths and the beer?
Yes, the latter.
Okay, so yeah, the booths and the beer, we're basically all tickets on that. You can't go and buy with cash to any of the beer vendors. We have the little setup, and you can't do it with the, I have to double check with the Lions, but I'm pretty sure the Lions are tickets too, unless they're taking it for their own donations. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure they volunteer.
Yeah, Lions are tickets.
Okay, so they're tickets too. So I think we're on track with that. I will double check, but I'm pretty sure we want to be all tickets. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just an observation. I thought 2 years ago when I was there was a lot of cash changing hands with the snow cones and the hot dogs.
I think you're right, Rita.
No, and
I agree.
it's a purely selfish, selfish for sales tax revenue, greedy, I should say, for sales tax revenues, so that we can maybe afford more pathways or more flowers or something.
Well, yeah, and those things do sound nice, but I think on our end of things, we want the consistency. I don't know why we would have somebody taking cash and somebody taking a ticket. So, I'll look into that. Again, I just kind of stepped in on this in February, so there's probably quite a bit I'm
Sure.
figuring out. But yeah, I know all tickets make sense. I don't know why we'd have some vendors allowed to take cash when others are taking tickets. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I just had one very small comment, and that's when Jenny and I were working with the drone lady 2 weeks ago, I think it was. I understand the carriage rides sold out. They were really well subscribed over the holidays. Is there any potential and any interest bringing them back when everybody's really, really feeling dreary in February?
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was our first time charging for the carriage rides. And it was actually our young gal, Jasmine, and the guy, Ben at Cork, who had mentioned charging. And once they picked all of us up off of our chairs at the thought of charging for the carriage rides, we sold out, I think it was 360 tickets in that ride. So it had sold out, and we were able to sell additional tickets to people that, didn't show, because it was kind of some people didn't come last minute and we had openings. So it really was successful. There was just, I think, a motion today to bring it back for Galentine's Day, which is on that Saturday of the Valentines, as well as the Cocoa Crawl, which actually the Cocoa Crawl is included in our deal for the holidays. The guy, I think his name is Mike, he throws in the Cocoa Crawl for free. So to answer your question, it's coming back 2 more times in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and so I just received an email, and Bill, you're copied on it, from Jazz, that said that February 6th, and then the 13th, and then on the 13th, right? So 2 days, and then she's going to be filling out a special event application and getting to it to us for the next board meeting. Wants to get it approved.
There you go. And we're looking at expanding the carriage ride next year. It was such a good hit. We're trying to include as much of the town as we can, maybe a little history lesson on some of the things. It was a big hit. So we're looking to expand it next year.
I just think that we do such a great job, and by the way, I add my thanks. We do such a great job around the holidays, and then by the time we get to January 12th, it's like this. And this is when everybody does need the cheering up again.
Yeah, you're right about that. Very good.
Thanks again.
Thank you,
Jesse. I appreciate you joining on short notice. Thank you very much.
No problem. All right, everybody. Let me know
Thanks.
if you need anything. Take care.
All right. Thank you, Jesse.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. This is an ordinance amending our village code regarding local traffic restrictions on Robert Parker Coffin Road. Vic, I think you talked to Bill. I have some concerns, so I was going to ask you to address this one for us.
Sure. As you know, we have regulations already in place regarding the height and weight of vehicles, which pretty much would preclude any kind of truck. That has not proven to be very helpful. The board, I want to say back in October, started talking about a local traffic only restriction, and signs have actually been erected to that effect. The problem is right now those signs are incongruous with the law. We don't have any law that enforces them, and as a result, they are, in a technical sense, rogue signs. And so in order to make sure that we have our regulations aligned with our signage, this ordinance will accomplish that. Now, the question might come up, well, A, why do we need to have them in alignment? And the reason for that is to maintain our protection under the Tort Immunity Act. Under the Tort Immunity Act, if you have signage which is not authorized by law, it's often deemed to be something that can create a dangerous condition. And if you have a dangerous condition, that's where we lose our tort immunity. So we want to make sure we have that protection firmly in place. Second question comes up is, if the real problem is trucks, and that's why we have the height and weight restrictions, why do we want to have the local traffic restriction at all, or can we limit it to trucks only? As I think we've communicated in a confidential memo, there are some limitations already with respect to how we go about a local traffic regulation. And I don't think that we can reconcile some of those limitations with a local traffic for trucks only. That said, we have the ability, because we have obviously limited police resources available to the village, we have the ability to direct how we implement the ordinance, and we can certainly implement it in a more limited way than the language of the ordinance itself. So the certain concern about the trucks may be our priority, and therefore we might tell the police, look, for purposes of enforcing this local traffic only regulation, let's focus initially just on trucks, and maybe that's where it begins and ends. But we can certainly do that as a prerogative of the board in terms of our degree of enforcement. Important note, the Tort Immunity Act protects us against the enforcement or lack of enforcement of our ordinances. So the approach we're taking is really designed to keep us not only within the scope of the law, but within the confines of the Tort Immunity Act that protects the village from liability in the event something untoward happens.
Vic, that's very helpful. So, I mean, bottom line is we want traffic, we want cars to be going through our downtown. We don't want to discourage those cars, right? I don't know that a local only sign will discourage them, but certainly by having it there, the mapping companies now, you know, are like Google Maps, thanks to Denise, right, for her work there. They already have it routed around, I believe, right? So for, you know, a car is not going to be mapped through there, a truck's not going to be mapped through there. So we're getting what we need, but to cover ourselves, we need this paperwork in place for the Tort Immunity Act. And but that doesn't mean we're going to give any cars tickets that go through there, right?
Right. That's an enforcement issue, not a legislative issue, and,
Okay.
and we have to keep those issues distinct under the Tort Immunity Act. And I think that
Okay.
if the board wants to pass this and then further direct that the police focus their enforcement efforts of that ordinance only on trucks for the time being, and that time being can be infinite for that matter. But you know, that's certainly a direction that can be given to the sheriff's office for the enforcement of that ordinance.
Hey, how garbage trucks and like delivery trucks to the church and things like that, how does that work for them?
Well, if they're making a stop there, they're within the local traffic regulation.
Okay, got
So
it.
that's not an issue.
Okay, got it.
Did you not tell us that there are potential ramifications of regarding any funds or grants or whatever's from state or federal if it's determined that it's local traffic only?
What we said was that depending on what the terms of the grants are, it may affect us, especially if the grants are designed to promote certain, you know, federal grants, federal policies, state grants, state policies. The local traffic restriction may, in those instances, run counter to the objective of the grant, which would, you know, either reduce our score in terms of the grant application evaluation, or maybe even disqualify us. But that's, because grants are of so many different shapes and sizes, that's not something that can be decided in a
Right.
easy way. It's either going to be it's always going to be discrete determination as to the impact, if any, that ordinance might have. But I think what we did say is that there is a potential that it could, because of the objectives that the grants may be seeking to pursue.
So it's approve the ordinance or take down the signs, basically is what it boils down.
I think that if we want to provide ourselves with the most complete protection under the Tort Immunity Act, that would be the way to do it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other conversation, thoughts, concerns?
I like this. I'm glad we're finally doing it. And I don't see him on, but Aaron Underwood was really the impetus towards doing this. And he did a lot of soul searching on what things could be useful. And so I think we owe him a bit of thanks. And with that, I would make a motion to approve the ordinance amending Title 11 of the Long Grove Village Code regarding local traffic restrictions.
Moved by trustee O'Reilly, seconded by
Second.
trustee Nora. Roll call, please.
Yes. Trustee Borowski.
I'll abstain.
Okay. Trustee Kritzmeyer.
How about yes?
Okay. And trustee O'Reilly.
Aye.
Trustee Nora.
Aye.
Trustee O'Connor.
Nay. I don't think.
Nay.
Nay, I don't think.
Oh.
Attention to the signs anyway.
Okay. And trustee Micho.
Aye.
Okay, that's a
Okay.
yes.
So
The motion
4,
carried.
1, and 1.
Yep. All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda, I don't know if Ann wants to make any comments, is to approve the bills for January. And do you
Look
have
at
any?
my paper is all mixed up, of course, which is not there. No real comments. I have asked, since what's going on with the interim manager, and sorry for the printing in the background, village manager and, being short-staffed at staff, we've been a little bit slower at being able to review the bills. So there's still more of that to catch up on. But other than that, there's nothing there. There's some final payments on our road. Sorry, how do I do this? I'll do that. There's some final payments on some of our road obligations for road maintenance this year, but there's really nothing else that's remarkable.
Yeah, and that's going to come out of eventually the motor fuel tax, right? So, correct?
Yep.
All right. So we got to pay the bill. So,
Oh, I would move that we approve the pay warrant for dated January 12th.
Second.
okay, moved by trustee Kritzmeyer, seconded by trustee O'Reilly. Another roll call vote. Amy, please.
Okay. Trustee Micho.
Aye.
Trustee O'Connor.
Aye.
Aye. Trustee Nora.
Aye.
Trustee O'Reilly.
Aye.
Trustee Kritzmeyer.
Aye.
And trustee Borowski.
Aye.
All right, motion carried.
Okay.
Thank you. Now we're in the section of the agenda, and I'm just going to go laterally through using Bill Balling's manager report here. Village President Trustee reports. The first one on there is report of the EDC meeting from this morning. I apologize for not making it. There was no way I could this morning, but if you could take us through, Trustee Micho, what happened, that would be great.
Yeah, it was a great meeting. A lot to talk about, and we got a lot accomplished, I think. I'm just going to kind of go down the checklist. We're working on getting out to interested parties information that we have this new TIF up and running to everybody. We're continuing to work on how'd you do it. The Appel group is interested in joining us. Weiss from the Reserve is a possibility, and also Skycrest. I'm hoping I had the meeting this morning, and then I got in a car and drove to St. Paul. So we worked on the video, and we have it up and running. We have it. I was hoping Denise might be able to share that tonight if we have time. Otherwise, we can. It's on the EDC Google Drive, but we could try to share it with the board drive. But I see some of the pictures actually made it up into the brochure. So hopefully people are seeing it. I think it's fantastic. As part of kind of a subheading of that, Anne and Mina met with some Stevenson teachers to kind of collaborate on maybe editing it and making it a little tighter. In addition to other projects. And it seems to like, maybe Anne can speak to this, seems like a pretty exciting collaboration opportunity. And then we had the PR director of the Illinois Restaurant Association speak, Matt Quinn, and he talked to kind of gave us a depressing outlook on what's happening for the poor restaurants and what maybe we can do to help them. And then lastly, we had the gentleman from the Reserve come and kind of talk about what they're doing, what their goal is for the Reserve. One of the things they asked that we could do is to maybe get disseminate the information on their Eastgate event, which we have given approval for. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk to all of you about, we all received the email from Mr. Vakari from Arlington Toyota. Anne and I kind of talked about it, and we thought that maybe the EDC would be the best venue to have him come and present. I've sent him an email. I have not heard back. So I don't know if anybody else had any correspondence with him. But if you're comfortable, we thought maybe him coming to the EDC and anybody that was interested in what he had to say could join that meeting. So that's the fast and the dirty.
Yeah, I did actually send him an email too and asked him if I could call him, but I didn't hear back. So, and I think the EDC is a great idea. So.
Okay.
Yep, me too.
So do you guys want to see the drone video, or do you just want me to try to put it on the?
It's
Well,
3
if you
minutes.
could show it, I'd love to see it.
Yeah.
It's 3 minutes. I mean, it's spot on 3 minutes. And if you want, I can share the conversation with the Stevenson teachers as well when we finish. Oh, we're not getting music, but just suffice to say there's music behind it.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
a trick to that. And it was on the EDC agenda, I think. Where did I see this? I found the link, so I did see this.
It's obviously a little smoother.
I thought this was so cute, all these kids playing football.
So it looks a little better when it's not streaming really weirdly.
Yeah.
But I think we all can, I think it needs a little bit tightening up, but for the most part, I think we're really pleased that the company that did it for us, thank you, Bobby, for putting us in touch with them. They gave us a great deal. They typically charge $260 for this, and they gave us a deal of $150. So, Anne,
Well,
maybe
my impression, seeing it for the first time, it looks like the Christmas village that I put under my Christmas tree.
Yeah.
It just has that look.
yeah. Well,
Yeah, those overhead views are awesome. Yeah, I've never seen Long Grove from however many feet off the ground they were.
It was funny that there was the brewery was doing Alpine Fest. I'm not even sure I've seen that many people in the summer. Everybody was so excited, and when we were chatting with people, they were really, really impressed by what Long Grove is doing to keep open.
Mm-hmm.
So
Are there any plans to include other parts of the village?
I think, yes, Rita, we would have to, obviously, we had a one-stop price for that. So it would definitely, we'd have to invest in more video of different areas. So, but I think that's definitely.
With seeing the effects, I think we should spend a little more.
Yeah.
And expand it.
Well, and maybe you want to splice in springtime and summertime so that the ultimate product is the 4 seasons, and maybe use the other seasons to incorporate other parts of the village, perhaps.
That's a great idea.
You know, I think this is, you know, it's some very lovely pictures and very appealing, very charming.
would now be a good time to talk about working with the Stevenson marketing class folks on this and other projects?
I think that's great.
Sure.
So my son took some of the marketing classes there, so I reached out to his particular teacher who has roots in the area, and Mina and I and Jenny would have joined had she not been driving to Minnesota, had a conversation today. I basically put a quick agenda and identified and said, look, as part of the EDC, their mandate, and they're looking at marketing things, and this and some of the other videos, the how'd you do it and all of that are things that they're trying to stitch together. Would the marketing classes be interested in partnering with us for a number of reasons? One, you know, it does take a village. We outsource almost everything. Cost conscious is one item certainly of it, but it's also kind of getting new ideas and also getting ideas that appeal to people who are a lot younger than me and a lot younger than most of us here on the phone. They were super excited about it. There are 2 teachers who teach the marketing class there. The semester just started. They would love to have an ongoing partnership with us in terms of having tangible marketing opportunities for the kids to be able to work on. You know, it's not like we need this tomorrow, fast-paced kind of thing, but I think maybe for these purposes that could work very, very well. They did work with Long Grove when they were asked to help revamp the Arts Festival to appeal to a younger crowd, and they really liked the way that worked out, but I wasn't here at that point in time, or I wasn't involved, but to be able to say, hey, you know what, we could work and partner with them on a regular basis, every semester marketing class could do something, they'd be thrilled. They've got about 90 kids. We do have to be patient with them. You don't get to say only the good ones work on this. Everybody would work on it, usually in groups of 3. And she said their experiences, you know, there'll be some that are just amazing and wow, and there'll be some that aren't so much necessarily. But, you know, we work through all of that. They do think this semester they're pretty jazzed about the group that they do, the kids they do have in the classes right now. And we also talked about actual internships, not even paid internships, but that would be the ability then to be able to say, all right, some high school kids could come in, focus a couple of hours, 4 or 5 hours a week on things. And that would be then, you know, you'd be able to take 1 or 2 who could then be the ones who are amazing and wow, and really motivated and want to be able to do that. no commitments on that, but that did come up in there. They appreciated, we talked about objectives. Number one, to help the current businesses, and that would be what can we do for customers? And so this video, that kind of thing would be Long Grove is open, please come. And being able to help us tighten up on some short-term projects like editing that video, adding some text on top of it, you know, helping with thing that on the
Excuse me.
EDC microsite, if that would be helpful. And flyers and brochures that are targeted to very specific audiences. Like the other objective would be clearly working with businesses. And I think Mina's going to be really helpful on that if we want to do that. They think they could add value on doing some things like in marketing research where we would have very specific questions to help them ask. Okay, that's not like big budget things, but just conducting them saying, what is it we're trying to accomplish? And that's a very fair item for any marketing. And then being able to come up with ideas and implementation and working on the near term. So Mina and I agreed we will regroup with Jenny and maybe Denise, if that makes sense. And say, you know, how do we want to help do that? The other thing they said helps them with success is saying, are there any things that are off limits? Things like a budget cap, things like understanding that, you know what, we're not going to try to attract big industrial kinds of business. That's not what we're looking for. We want to work through where things are on the comp plan and things like that. So all in, I thought Mina and I were really happy with it. I think the teachers were really happy with it, and it's a neat opportunity. If anybody has any questions or comments, that would be great to hear.
I would like to ask, how would this work with the HD LGBA, or would it?
As part of the stuff, I just gave them a 2-page overview, and I said that would be a potential partnership or potential working with Vicarious, you know, depending on how we would want to work with that. But I think that would be an ongoing conversation. I think easier for the teachers if we have single point of contact, but then as part of their research, they're working with that might be the way that it manifests. But we've definitely put that on the table of like, there is a downtown association already that does some things.
Well, I wouldn't want to see us stepping on their toes either.
Right.
And just for point of reference, we're going to be discussing at our next board meeting some issues about social media for the village.
Okay. Issues or opportunities?
Opportunity. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Already planning to have issues. Okay, got it.
I don't understand how this would infringe upon the HDLGBA. I mean, this is a marketing effort to bring businesses to Long Grove, right? So how would that?
It's number one, it's 2 parts. One is working to bring customers to existing business, and number 2 would be try to help attract new business.
Oh, I did. Okay. I was thinking it was to attract new business. I didn't realize it was bringing in, I mean, which is fine. I think it's a terrific idea. I love the idea of partnering with the schools, and you know, it'd be fun once everything is spliced and put together. Jeff took some great pictures of the bridge being put in place, and we also have some overheads of the decorated solar panels up at the school that, you know, just for an entire overview kind of thing, I think would be really fun. It's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thanks for doing that.
And what's required by us? Is there anything contractual, or is it a handshake agreement? How does this work?
It's a handshake agreement. I think, you know, the only thing I explained that on budget, I said we do have some, but it's not like, oh, here's the dollar budget. It's more of, let's determine what the plan is and then come back. I mean, that's what we're doing with the EDC. It's the same thing. It's not EDC budget. It's here are the projects. I think the thing will be to make sure that it's tied tightly through Mina and Jenny with the EDC and what they're trying to accomplish. But I think that kind of oversight or figuring out where are the points of contact, I did it because I knew the people. But what the point of contact, to me, that would be the thing so that we don't get ourselves bunched up and we don't frustrate them. There is no contract needed at this point. I think to me, it's really of confirming, do we want to pursue this? And then kind of go from there. And if there's anything on those questions you think that are important to answer or anything that you think is off limits, I guess that would be, let Jenny and me or Mina know.
Any objections from the board?
No, not me.
It's a fabulous idea.
You might
I
want-
think it's a great idea. Vic, is there any liability that we might be putting ourselves into?
Not as a direct result of this. I mean, obviously things can happen along the way that might give rise to it, but not the act of doing so.
Okay.
Maybe the
Right.
fact
Okay.
between all of us in this meeting, we contribute about $100,000 to Stevenson in property taxes. That might help.
Haven't we already done that?
Haven't we already paid?
Wait, I
Yeah.
think that blood already got taken.
Yeah.
Boy,
This meeting is being recorded, by the way, so I just
Okay. all
want
right.
you guys to know that they could look up our discussion. Hey, I don't know, is this a public relations liability? I mean, I think it's one thing to have a project kind of thing going, but it's another thing if this gets respun into, kind of low-cost labor, right?
Is that
Oh, the experience that they would get.
Well, I get that, but, I'm just curious about, one of these, I mean, there's so many
Pet shop?
cases of companies getting hammered for, for using low-cost labor.
Yeah, but they
But
have,
it's a school project.
yeah, right. They have to have something to work on. And if,
Yeah.
we agree to be taken on and they take us on, I understand what you're saying. Is it all bad though?
Is it well, my question is, somebody from public relations might be able to answer that question. I don't think so. If it's a one-off project, I think it's great. I really do. I think it's good community relations kind of win-win. But if it's a continuous long-term project where we're skirting hiring real PR people, I think, one can make the case that maybe it's not that.
Knowing on PR, I actually would never have them replace PR because PR is a lot about relationships and understanding those audiences in a more sophisticated way. But things like developing brochure, things like, that video, you don't want 3 minutes of video going in the middle of a Facebook post or Instagram or Twitter or things, you need to even just tightening up and thinking about the first thing you do, especially for younger, is 15 seconds or they're going to swipe it out. Okay, so then
Swipe
15
left.
seconds and then what's the next offer? And then what's the next offer? And working. So
No, and my question wasn't, maybe I didn't state it properly. I just don't want to see us in the Daily Herald saying, Long Grove using child labor instead of paying for professionals.
well, I think partly we have part of control. I understand that. I also
Okay.
think to me, they're so excited. It's a terrific opportunity for kids to work on something that's genuine and meaningful and close to home. We also, by the way, if you really want to think about it from our different TIF districts, one of the things is actually asking on the Joint Review Board is asking those taxing bodies if there are opportunities to work together and collaborate on things that do economic development from the TIF thing. And College of Lake County came to one of those to offer about, well, what do we have for job things? I know you want to put restaurants in. We have those kinds of training things. So, there's even that angle of like, this is a good responsible thing to do.
Yeah, but those are adults. These are children. There's a difference.
Yeah, but I think you could get good PR from the fact that the village is actively involved in the education of the next generation. There's always going to be haters. Someone's going to spin it exactly the
saying,
way you're saying, Chris.
I'm just saying, I don't want to see it spun that way. I don't want to see Chris
I
Borowski's
agree, but I
name
think this
associated with
is-
child labor.
I
Hey,
think
Bobby?
it's a defensible position if
I understand
it's
that.
not put
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, maybe.
Bobby, when you meet with Vicarious, could you would you mind posing that to Melanie and asking for her gut on that?
Okay, well, I'll see her at 9:30 in the morning.
Oh, there you go.
That'd be
Great.
perfect, because
Thank
I think that'd be a good third third to versus me just being happy about it. But okay, end of that. Oh, one thing I did it once. This is not on our agenda necessarily, and so it's not an action, but it's more of as I was getting them links to be able to look at things. We still have a downtown development plan, master plan on the website in a couple of different areas from 2008. And, you know, per Jim Hogue, like that's the kind of thing that this body should decide. Do we want that out there? Do we think we still believe in it? Do we want the plan commissioner or somebody like that to retake a look at it? Not on our agenda. We can't take action, but I would invite people to take a look and say, is that something we should ask to have either removed or redone or revisited at least by some folks?
When working on the revised comp plan, we knew that needed to be done, and that was 4 years ago. But I don't think that there's been, you know, the will to and the cost of doing so. But you're right, it needs to be done.
Okie dokie. I don't know how who wants to run point on that or not, but we can
Well, I think
put
we
that
need,
till later.
yeah, I was gonna say, you need to pick the number of projects we work on it at a time, right? So I don't know if that's one that you kick the can a little bit on so that we can, you know, get some stuff done that we have in front of us now, right? You know,
I
There
completely
could be a
agree.
new village manager project.
yeah.
If the concern is simply that it's on the website and it might be misconstrued, I think that it's certainly been superseded by the subsequent adoption of the comprehensive plan. So we don't have to have it on the website. I mean, it'd be a public document if someone were to ask for it. But we don't have to have it on the website, and that's just as an administrative determination.
Yeah, I've got that for notes to talk to Jim about tomorrow on our staff call. So I'll get an update from him in perspective, but we don't want anything stale, you know, on the, or not relevant to what we're trying to achieve. So I think we'll come up with a solution for you.
Thanks, Bill.
Is it not just a matter of deleting it?
Well, it might be. Maybe he's got something else to put in his place. We always like to showcase that part of the village because it's one, you know, it's a differentiator for the village. A lot of people don't have that. And I'll get his input and report back to the board.
Yes, thanks.
All right. So Jenny, do you have anything else to report?
Just one last thing. The gentleman from the reserve were speaking, several EDC members and Anne expressed an interest in touring. They offered another tour of the building, and EDC members are interested, and I know some of the other board members were interested. And so we're talking about, and this is a question about the Open Meetings Act, can we have a meeting off-site? So more than just two of us can attend. So how do we do that? We're hoping maybe after the next EDC meeting. So our meeting's at 7, maybe at 9, we convene at the reserve for a tour, and anybody would be invited. But how do we do that?
We just have to notice it up with an agenda, and it can be an agenda that says special meeting of the EDC at 9 o'clock and whatever date at the location, and the agenda can be one public tour of the site, period.
Okay. Great. So once we set that date, any of you that would be interested in joining, I would encourage you to come.
And if you're piggybacking it on another meeting, you can have it simply as the last item on the agenda and say continued at approximately 9 o'clock to that other location, you know, if that's simpler.
Perfect, great. End of report. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, and Roger's
Thanks,
there too,
Jenny.
so hopefully you heard that when he puts the agenda together when you decide. So, yeah, appreciate it, Jenny. Next item on the agenda, you know, Ann, you're leading this again too, because it's getting the next fiscal year budget going, right?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. And Bill and Denise pipe in, because Bill and Denise and I had a really nice conversation last week, just sort of, I would call it guiding principles and, you know, major changes. So if you recall, last year's budget or this current year's budget was more or less flat with the year before it, about 2.9 million on the general fund, and that's kind of to keep the lights on. And we talked about, well, what are the things that are larger that might need changing or might need addressing that are somewhat different? Number one, the single largest item in the budget from any one place is the sheriff's contract. So the public safety contract is something that I'm sure, Chris and Bill and everybody are working on that, but that would be one that we need to be able to get our hands around there. There's a question of the anything we can do related to sheriff or anything else in terms of the questions we've had about Checker Road, cut through, people cutting through, passing school buses, things like that. Is there something that we can do there? So that was something and by the way, these things I'm mentioning are things that are kind of like on the wish list. Of course, the numbers all have to work. And so that's what Bill and Denise and staff will be working through over the next month. A third item would be things like, what do we do now that Buffalo Grove does not want to do property maintenance for us? They're changing the way they do the property maintenance enforcement and the way they're doing that. So we have to deal with that. There's a small item on tree service, which might be there, and certainly things on staffing, anything that we'd like to be able to do that makes sense and build that into the budget. I also had mentioned some other ones in terms of technology and software upgrade, looking more clearly into the BSNA offerings. And can we get more of that onto the web for self-service, building permits, things like that? I know some of those exist. We need to figure out what would that take and be able to do something so that, a resident can have a nice experience Saturday morning going on, applying online, doing everything much more self-service and be able to hand that off. Don't know what that takes, but we believe it's possible. I had also had two things in terms of, and this is, it's me thinking, it's not me being the point person on these, on plans for pathway and plans for water. We can't afford all of these things, but we were a little bit on our heels when we were, can we get a grant to connect up to Lake Michigan? Could we possibly think about feasibility studies or things like that that would allow us to, we can't afford to build right away, but will we have a plan that we agree on that said, first dollar in the door, here's what we do with it. We've had pathway plans where I know Bobby made comments and Chris did also about like what happened to the north end of the town. To me, something that actually is a plan, even though we may not have all the money to manifest it right away. Those are the things I'd like to be able to say, we have this, we're ready, and then we start going looking for the funding. Anyway, given all that, if there are any others, now would be the time, or would be the time to get emails off to Bill and Denise. They're going to be the ones running point on that over the next month and providing updates. I'll meet with them and probably President Bill Jacob, if you want to, as well in early February, so that this board will see the first draft at the second meeting in February, that February 23rd. That'll be the first bite of looking at that and being able to talk through the narrative of here's the things that are the same and here's the things that are different and why. If we need to, we could also talk about that the first weekend of March or the first meeting in March, but the goal would be have the public review and public hearing at the second meeting in March and make sure that we have this finalized by the end of April.
Any questions? If
Sounds good.
not, go ahead.
No, I just said, sounds good to me.
Good. What I could do right now, I think there's two things that are here that maybe Bill can help address. We're trying to set up a meeting with the Lake County Sheriff, Police again, and first an internal meeting again, and then another meeting with them to go over the contract. And then I don't know if you wanted to talk about the Mundelein maintenance, property maintenance work that you're doing to try to get them to, at least for the interim, be able to be somebody that we can use for the property maintenance.
Yeah, we've got a bit of a backlog on property maintenance that we need to address like right away. My goal would be to get some boots on the ground activity yet this month. We are under contract with Mundelein with a purchase of service contract for plan review and inspectional services, and they've expressed the willingness to pick up property maintenance as well. that's a really nice fit because they have the Mundelein court, adjudication court that's in place that their department is used to accommodating. But we still would need to create that addendum. And my goal is to get some of the problem piece, and we've got about a half a dozen sites that we need some contacts and addressing right away. Get that started immediately and go on what I'll call as a T&M basis with the Village of Mundelein. I don't think they're going to feel shorted from that. And then bring back an addendum letter at our second meeting in January, so we can codify the amendment to the Mundelein agreement. Everything looks pretty good with working with Mundelein. Their director unfortunately became ill, so we're shifted now to working with the assistant director. I'm going to call the village manager myself just to alert him, because I'm not sure that the deputy has walked that through. But that's a real nice fit for us, and I think it's one that will have continued good service from the Mundelein staff. And it's we can expect that you're going to go that rider letter is probably going to be on an inspection time basis, and you can expect that you're going to put in a few more hours on compliance with some of these property maintenance issues that may require court adjudication. Want to get some semblance of what we think our budget might look like for that, but it's something that we can't let slip. Buffalo Grove is out of that business; they're going all contract, and this is a nice recommendation. So that's the course of action that I'd like to see undertaken, and I'm moving ahead to do that, and then getting this thing addendum put together that we can bring back at our next meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. There's no commitment just when we do that. So we now have the ability to use them. If we choose to go another direction, we can still do that, right?
Yeah,
Bill?
yeah. They've expressed it. I said, look, we've got some trouble out here and we need you guys working on it. Initially, they wanted to get an initial assessment. We've sent them some comments. Jim Hogue was kind enough to put together some of the historical stuff that we have on property maintenance. But let's get it addressed. I don't want them just looking at it. I'd like to see them address it. And it's fair for us to pay them for the hours that they put in until we can get that thing codified as an addendum to the agreement.
Thank you, Bill. Any concerns?
Thank you.
I think the sooner the better.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to keep us moving here. This is under Trustee Nora, but I think it's Rita's, Trustee O'Connor, but the APWA 2020 Project of the Year Award, Transportation, 5 million category, Robert Parker Coffin Road. Jeff, did you want to just highlight that really quickly? I guess congratulations.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations to the village. The American Public Works Association awards and gives out Project of the Year awards every year for several categories: structures, transportation, environment, historic are the categories, and certain dollar amounts. In December, I put in an application for Robert Parker Coffin Road for the transportation under $5 million category, and was notified last week that that project was selected at the local level as the project of the year. So congratulations on that.
That's great.
So
Plaque.
what's that?
Who gets the plaque?
It is being mailed to Village Hall. I did get the award letter yesterday, and they did make a point to tell you where you can get duplicate plaques, or 2 or 3 or however many you want.
Oh, we just want one plaque. It's going to be like the Stanley Cup. Everybody gets a week with it.
There you go.
Perfect.
We'll disinfect it before we pass it
I
around.
think put one at Sunset and one at downtown on either side of the path.
Yeah.
There you
So,
go.
Jeff, what was the criteria used? Any idea? Was it the streetscaping that went along with it, or was it just the whole, project in general?
So the projects, they certainly look at uniqueness. They look at project need. They also look at things, design challenges. Was this a high profile project from community involvement? And, those things, financial things, project management, value engineering was in it too. So how they're scored, I don't know. I just know those are the topics that needed to be touched on in the application.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can, Jeff, could you get me something so that we can be certain to get a good amount of publicity for it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, those are
Even
great.
a
Those
picture
are,
of the plaque.
well, there's a great presentation. I'm looking for it here. I thought I grabbed a copy with me that was used for the presentation. Ordinarily, we would be getting a nice lunch at Maggiano's. But actually, we start with an aerial shot. I know you can't really see it that well.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
There's some nice elements, and the design features that Jeff's team put together for us goes back to some historic stuff. I'll get this distributed to the board at least so you can see this. It's they got some operational things on how the road was shaved and reconstructed.
That sells.
So it's a real brand lift for the towns. I've been fortunate enough to get a couple of these myself, and it really is a nice brand lift. And the reputation of the village and doing things right in your downtown really, it gets resonated throughout the region, and it's a good thing. So but I think working one of these into our discussion tomorrow, Bobby, with Vicarious will be helpful. So make sure they get the full layout. But Jeff did a great job. The team did a great job, and as professional as they are, they worked that through for us, and obviously didn't charge us for that, which is a great thing as well. Put a big smile on my face. So,
well, timing is wonderful. As we're trying to bring more people back downtown.
Right. Yeah.
And did you raise your hand? What did you do?
She put the party poppers out there.
I clapped. I'm celebrating.
And just to let you know, I will be submitting an application later this year for the bridge for the historic category, and I've already had friendly discussions and wagers in the office that project stands a very good chance.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Win the bet. We should probably get this on the website too.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, this is it's an independent body that looks at this and measures it against other projects. It's a big deal. I mean, this is not, this is nice.
Nice job, Jeff. Thanks.
Nice.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
All right, Jeff, you're still on the hook here because now it's report of the village engineer.
Okay, so report of the village engineer. There's a lot of new updates on my form. A lot of those are due to, I haven't updated this in a month, but just gonna kind of go through it. North Kruger Road still on track for a March bid letting. Bill, thank you for signing all of the agreements. Hopefully you didn't burn through too many pens or give yourself a writer's cramp.
There's a lot of documents. You are right. And I did that as soon as I got back from Florida on Sunday night. So, yep.
Yeah.
Because I read your engineer's report in the car while we were driving and it said that it was due on Monday, right? So I ran over to sign it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I certainly don't want to get tripped up by anything on this one. So the Robert Parker Coffin Road Streetscape, we just mentioned that we got the Project of the Year award. A-Lamp still needs to give us a railing in front of the Olive Tap building. So that has been ordered. A-Lamp is, they went dark on us all of 2020 for various reasons, but we certainly need to get that finished out, and I had a kind of a heart-to-heart discussion with them in December about getting that. The abutment project, that's done, and the last reimbursement for the state funding, that $250,000 will be coming. The timber cover project is done. Earlier, the final payments to Carmichael Construction were approved for that. Similar with the repairs from the different accidents, the bus and the medical truck or specifically. The next thing that's highlighted, the 2021 road maintenance program. I just took a look at the capital improvement plan, just to kind of highlight what was on there for that. I do believe that some additional discussion between the, I'll call it the roads committee, which is probably Trustee O'Connor, President Jacob, Bill Balling, and myself about that before it gets too much steam discussion at the board level, but did want to put that out there that where we were on the capital plan. We didn't hear anything by the end of the year for the Lake Michigan Rebuild Illinois Public Infrastructure Grant. So I know Manager Balling was going to get an update for us on that, since they promised that an update would be provided by the end of 2020.
Yeah, they're still haven't responded to that query, but we're still hopeful that some will come through and that for us, give us a good option for source of supply if we can get the grant funds.
Yep. One of the items that had been discussed after the water system was drained of water in October was SCADA system improvements, and the Advanced Automation and Controls is now under contract. And Manager Balling approved that under his spending authority to come out and upgrade the SCADA system so that we can get rid of the quote unquote squawk box. They'll be on site next week to do that. The next item, just to give an update on the Route 53, the drainage with the drain tiles. At the December board meeting, the first meeting, I reported that IDOT installed a drainage structure for Mr. Trackman, but it was full of water, so not working. IDOT has since ran a scoping tape through the pipe and confirmed that drain tile flows under the road and flows for 163 feet to the south. So IDOT is now confident that the drain tile functions under their road and the blockage is outside of their right of way. So the next step would be to, one next step would be to extend the drain tile survey and figure out where the heck this drain tile goes. So I have asked Huddleston McBride, who did the study in Martin Estates and Martin Woods, for a proposal to do just that. And once I get that, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion on that. The speed study, IDOT had committed to doing a speed study on Route 53, that specific section, after their project was complete, and they said that they would have that done by the end of 2020. Calendar is rolled over and we have not received that. I have not received an update on when we can expect that either. So as I get information on that, I certainly will keep that on the engineer's update. Chickamauga Drive, that drainage project, on December 23rd, the village received the grant reimbursement for that project. So that project is now closed. The Illinois Bike Path Grant, which is the Robert Parker Coffin pathway, that is moving forward. IDOT has plans for their review, so we're still planning on a summer construction for that. And As you recall, easements are needed from 4 property owners for that project. All have agreed in concept to the easements, and we sent the actual documents, the exhibits, and the verbiage for those easements over to the owners earlier last week for their review. So I will be following up with them here in the next week or two, just to make sure that they got it if they have any questions. Moving on down the list, I'm sorry, there's quite a few updates, but going down to number 21, there had been a unpermitted work violation at 7037 Willow Spring Road. In late November and early December, the owner had performed work to resolve that unpermitted work violation. He actually built a berm around his property, blocked a drainage path from the neighbor. That complaint had been turned over to the village prosecutor, gosh, probably 2 years ago. Finally, the owner did some work to resolve his unpermitted work and blocking the flow path. So the WDO violations have been cleared up on that. And then finally, Antietam and Schaefer Road, down in Country Club Estates, the village had received complaints of poor drainage in the village's sewer pipes, which didn't necessarily lead me to jump up and down, do jumping jacks, but I did go out there, and there's a sinkhole forming at the northwest corner of Antietam and Schaefer. There's a utility pedestal right there, and also there's a wet spot in the northeast corner of Sumter and Schaefer. So I talked to Manager Balling about this, and it would be advantageous, and we suggested to get American Underground out there to camera the storm sewer pipes to figure out what's going on over there, because I think there might be up to 3 different blockages or breakages over there. So they haven't committed to their schedule yet, but they'll be out there here in the next couple weeks to take a look at that. And then the remainder of the engineers updates, just various updates to outstanding engineering permits. So with that, I will open it up if there's any questions. Happy to respond to them.
I have several, and I've got 4, and I apologize for having so many. The pile of bridge remnants that are over at the well, are they just rotting? Is there any kind of protection on them at all?
You're right. There's no protection on there. They were just placed over there when the bridge cover was taken down.
Are those to be preserved, or I was gonna plan to get rid of them, but no, you said they have to be saved?
We want them.
Okay.
Okay. And then you mentioned Willow Spring, and some time ago we had a discussion, I think it was brought up by a neighbor, about a drainage problem with the building that's on 6083, and a whole drainage problem that was all involved with them. Has that been resolved? And do you even know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. 7040, 7044, guy's name was Conrad Gerstenbrand. We got that resolved to the fact that there's a privately owned drain tile that services that area that had several blockages in it. The village, much like what IDOT did, confirmed that the drain tile is functioning within the right-of-way, and traced it further upstream while the guys were out there to confirm these blockages. The drain tile not in any easements, privately owned and maintained. The owner contacted Lake County Stormwater Management about the property on 6083, the Baymont Hotel, which is actually in Mundelein. And Lake County provided a response, and it's been a few weeks, few months since I've looked at that. But Lake County Stormwater responded that that was kind of a condition of how this area was developed in the 50s, and nobody's real not responsibility, but nobody, exactly.
It's this
exactly.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just natural development over time. So
So
the-
is our
the owner
neighbor,
wasn't happy to hear that, but he was understanding of when I talked to him about that. And again, this is probably going back a year.
okay,
But
okay.
that was when the car wash issue was being discussed. And they talked about all of that flooding of that happens to their backyard, that hotel.
So there's no real resolution to it unless they do it privately.
Correct.
Okay.
Unfortunately. Yep.
And then my last two are whatever happened with Forsyth, did it drop off the face of the earth? And Eleonora, I know, nothing's happening with it, but it's not going to go away.
Yeah, the Forsyth, unfortunately, I would use your term that no update and falling off the face of the earth. So nothing had been communicated. And the last was, it was in their court that their engineer had come up with a plan to regrade and install improvements in the Old McHenry Road right away. And from what I understood, it was going back to the property owner to concur that that was going to be an acceptable resolution. And then once she agreed to that, then it was going to be presented to the county. But
So
I
the
haven't-
ball is in their court for
Correct.
whether they're going to be aggressive or not on it.
Yeah, and if you'd like, I can reach out to their engineer to see what the status is.
That would be nice
I think so.
to know.
Okay.
And then Eleanor,
Yeah, Lake Eleonora, we had a discussion with them last year about their storm sewer maintenance responsibilities. It was a productive phone call, Zoom meeting. And they were going to come up with a plan and bring that back to us. Us was former manager Led Spike and myself on that one. So I take your point that nothing has happened since
it's going to
then.
go away.
And follow up, exactly.
And when you think about downstream, it's like, okay. Thanks for those answers.
Yep.
And I love this report. It's so good.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Village Engineer Perry?
I had just one, and I agree. Thank you, Jeff and Bobby. Also, it's just so much easier to track all of this, so I appreciate that very much. No update on item 16, Route 22 widening. Any peep, any whisper, anything understanding at all?
I have not heard anything. I would read the tea leaves of not hearing anything means that it's not imminent to any stretch of the word.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Weren't they saying 2024, Jeff, the letting, maybe?
I've heard 2022, I've heard 2023, I've heard 2024, but nothing lately.
Cold day in hell. Just saying.
Any other questions for Village Engineer Perry?
No, thanks for your report. It's great.
All right, thank you, Jeff.
Welcome.
Then
Welcome.
the next item on the agenda is report of the building commissioner. Is that Mr. Nora or is that Mr. Balling?
I could give you a brief rundown, but my first question is, Bill, did you distribute the PDFs I sent to you this morning? Or did you not even get the PDFs I sent?
I did not distribute them, and if I got them, I didn't see them, so.
Okay,
uh,
I emailed them, and actually I could probably pull a couple of them up if there's a way I can share my screen. Anyways, I got caught back up with the reports I was putting together from the spreadsheets. With the pie chart showing the distribution of
Oh, yeah, okay.
things like that, and the year-to-date gross revenues, net revenues before overhead, and then net revenues after overhead. So I was hoping that got distributed to everyone.
No, I did distribute the last page of the handout, Chuck, that I have for December. That's one of your documents, isn't it? The permit revenue and expenses summary, or is that something that Margarita
No.
puts together?
That Margarita put that together. I kind of expound on it a little bit, I guess.
Okay. I'll get those out, Chuck. I apologize for that, but I didn't see them today.
Okay. Well, we had a pretty good month in December. Only 25 permits, but there were some very large renovations going on, which added to a nice grand total. So, I actually prefer working off of my reports. So I apologize. I don't spend too much time on the ones that were in the board packet.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, can you give us an update at the next meeting then, Chuck?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Like I said, I thought that all that documentation was already distributed to you guys.
Yeah,
One question about permits and so forth. Are we going to go back to presidents getting notification of building permits in their association?
I would like to, and I don't know why we stopped. So,
Well, there was an explanation. I didn't buy into it, but I would like to see us going back to doing that.
Yeah, the explanation was
Me too.
that they're understaffed right now. They don't have the time, so they just discontinued it. So
okay.
Oh, is that just sending a copy of the permit application that we issued, or the permit app?
just letting people know that somebody filed for a permit. And it's really helpful because where we get ourselves in trouble is, let's say somebody's making some kind of a change to their building and there's covenants that govern it. The change may happen to the building and the HOA never weighed in on it. Now the HOA is on the outside looking in and may be having to sue the homeowner because they violated the covenants.
When did we stop doing that? Do you know?
Margarita said that it was after Julie left. She just stopped doing it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because
I think it was much sooner than that.
okay. Well, I'll add this to the staff call tomorrow. See if we can't get that back up. I mean, in this last month, we only had 29 permits. So, I mean, it's a fraction, and not everyone's governed by the HOA. So, this sounds like something, if it's a notification and you can, forward the application, it's not a time intensive task, but I'll see what.
Form letter that.
Yeah, it was a form letter, you're right.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
But did it explain what they were doing, or would they have to?
They're doing this, and that was really all it was.
Okay.
They actually didn't get into detail of what type of permit. It just was informing the HOA.
No, they would say if it's
the
for
permit.
roofing or if it was for siding or.
Yeah, they didn't, but they
Yeah.
wouldn't show plans and things like that.
They didn't have the permit application or anything with it. It was just a notification.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so.
Yeah, we should be able to work that back in.
It was very helpful,
Okay.
when I was the HOA president.
I think I
for
sent you a
Country
copy
Club
of the
Estates.
email, Bill, that I got, the response I got from Margarita. So
Oh, okay.
never followed up on it
Okay.
with you.
The homeowner have to give permission for that information to be sent to their HOA president?
It's
Is that a question, Rita, or is that is that a statement?
No, do they have to give permission? I mean, do we have a right to do that?
We do have a right as public information. What we don't have the right to do is to share the plans.
No. Mhm.
It's innocuous. It's just, the street address, then, and just something simple about what it is. And it was, filed on to the village, and then the HOA then has the opportunity to go. In our case, in my HOA, we have an alterations and additions form, and we send that to them and ask them to fill it out, and that gets approved by the HOA board. So,
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like something that's practical to do.
and I can tell you that mistakes have happened where our HOA made a mistake, and they go to the village says you can put a fence up. Well, you still needed to get approval from our HOA, and now the fence went up, and we never got it down. So that's where just having that information up front really
Yeah,
is so
it's
helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can see
Easier
that.
to stop something from happening than make them reverse what they've done.
And there's other
Yeah.
issues that have come up too
Yeah.
over the years. So, yep.
Okay, we'll bring it up tomorrow.
All right. We don't have any board meeting minutes for tonight, Amy, right? So,
Correct.
correct. Okay. So then I would like to move into public comment. Does anyone have any public comment? I take that as no. So then I'd like a motion to move into executive session to talk about personal matters only.
So move.
Moved by trustee O'Reilly, seconded by
Second,
trustee Nora. Roll call, please.
Okay, trustee Borowski,
Yes.
trustee Kritzmeyer,
Yes.
trustee O'Reilly,
Aye.
trustee Nora,
yes.
trustee O'Connor,
Aye.
and trustee Micho.
Aye.
All right.
Okay.
Motion carried. So
Bill, will
now-
you need me in the executive session tonight?
I don't think so, Vic. So
All right, very good. Good
yeah,
night,
enjoy the
everybody.
night.
Have a good night, everybody.
Night, Vic.
Good night, guys.
All right, let me try to put us in executive session, and we'll go from there. Stand by. And Sharon, you're going to be joining us too. I see you, Sharon. So
Here.
One of the questions I forgot to ask you is recording of the session.
yeah, I'm going to record it. So
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
let me open up a breakout room. Hey, Bill, you got to join the meeting. Do you need to do anything?
I apologize, Bill.
All right, who, let's see, are we all here?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so who wants to make a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Okay, moved by trustee Norris, seconded by trustee Christmeyer?
Sure.
Sure, okay. Roll call. Amy?
Sorry, I was still on mute. I had already started. Trustee Micho.
Yes.
Trustee O'Connor.
Can't hear you.
Geez, I can't hear you again. Okay. Trustee Nora.
Yes.
Trustee O'Reilly.
Aye.
Trustee Kritzmeyer.
Aye.
And Trustee Borowski.
Yes.
All right,
Good night,
motion carried.
everyone.
Meeting adjourned. Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Aye.
Thank you,
Have
everybody.
Good weeks.